Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the meeting of March 12th, 2024 of the Town of Rising Sun Mayor and Commissioners. May I have the roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Braun? Commissioner Pearson?
Here.
Emily?
Here.
Commissioner Warnick?
Here.
The mayor is not in attendance tonight, which is why I am sitting here.
Let the record show you do have a quorum.
Okay. Could we all rise for the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Klein. I couldn't remember the word.
If we could just take a moment for prayer to anyone who is in need. Please watch over our first responders and our police officers and anyone that you may have in your concerns. Thank you. Okay, first item on the list is the consent agenda to approve the video of the February 27, 24 meeting. Does anyone have any corrections?
Commissioner Pearson, if I might add, if you remember, we approved the consent agenda as one action item at one
Okay.
time, but I'm also asking for an amendment to the original agenda to add a new item C under public presentations to address a resolution to process requests for staff technical assistance and advisory review services. So if you're good with now that when you vote on this, it doesn't mean you're adopting the resolution. You're accepting the change in the agenda so you can consider the
Okay.
resolution later.
So, but we're just going to vote on this at the moment. You're going to give us, under resolution 2404,
Yes,
that you'll.
we'll talk
we'll
specifically about
specifically
that.
on that.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
All in favor, say
Aye.
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 It passes. Okay. I assume amend the agenda was the discussion you just gave?
Yes,
Okay. So we cannot hold up our wonderful auditors any longer than they have to be here. You're welcome to give us the news.
Give us a spiel. Hi, I am Kim Stang from Zelenkowski Axelrod, and with me tonight is Steve Rock. I'm going to let him do a lot of the talking, but you received 3 deliverables from us. One is a letter from us to you. You as council, those charged with governance, you received a report, which is what you're flipping through, and you've also received, it was submitted, the UFR. So we assisted with you with submitting that. In our letter to you, we discuss our responsibilities. We're your independent auditors. There was nothing of major significance of note. And of course, we thank Judy and all her help and her team. They have been wonderful, and they make it easy for us to work. And so our letter itself, there's not a whole lot. Take your time, read through it. There's one thing that people get worried about when they do read it, and it talks about the risks that are involved. And if you look at that, it talks about management override, and those risks are audit risks of everything. And I don't think it doesn't look like Judy provided that to you, and we can send that to you, the governance letter. So we can send it to you to make sure you have it. But those are risks in every audit, so we do get asked that question. But again, we're your independent auditors, and I'm going to turn it over to Steve to talk about the actual results of the financial statements.
If you wanted to spend some time on it, I did send it to Calvin to put on the screen, if you wanted to spend some time on the governance.
That's
letter.
okay.
It's up
It's
to you
more,
guys.
the financial statements themselves are a little more important.
Okay.
So on your financial statements, it'll begin with the independent auditor's report or our opinion on the financial statements. This will be pages 1 through 3. And right there in the first paragraph, it really does give your opinion. And after our audit of the financial statements, we offered a clean opinion. We had no findings when it came to the financial statements. Pages 4 through 11 will be management's discussion and analysis. And this is just management's way of kind of communicating a lot of the numbers, the changes in the numbers, to kind of explain like what ended up going on during the year. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but like I said, it does offer a lot of insight into the financial statements from management's perspective. Going to page 12, this is your statement of net position. This is really where the financial statements begin for what we would have provided an opinion over. But in the end, it shows your financials broken out by governmental activities and business type activities. Your total assets when it came to your governmental activities was about $8.4 million. And when it came to the business type activities, the water and sewer funds, it was about $24.5 million. Going down, you'll then see the liabilities. The liabilities for the governmental type was about $4.8 million, whereas the business type activities were about $20.8 million. And then this then leaves like the the total net position, pretty much the difference between your assets and your liabilities. So for your governmental types, you have about $3.6 million, and then for the business type, it ended up being about $3.7 million. Going to the next page, this is your statement of activities, and it really breaks down your revenues and expenses by the type of revenues and expenses that you would have. So it breaks it down by your general government, your public safety, public works, and it shows what expenses you would have for each of those, shows your revenues that you would have for them, and then it'll give you your total governmental kind of change, whereas you see it, you had a 1.7 million negative, which then kind of goes into why you actually have tax revenues and all those different. So those are kind of listed below in your general revenues, which resulted in $2.7 million general revenues. And then overall, it shows that you had, for your governmental type activities, you had about $250,000 of a net gain during the year in your change in net position, the governmental types. Going on to page 14, this then shows more the fund level. So whereas your governmental type government-wide statement showed pretty much all your assets and liabilities, this is more like a one-year snapshot of what your assets and liabilities may be. Again, your assets are about $4.4 million. The liabilities about $2.7 million, with about 2.5 being unearned grant revenue that you have for the year. And this is your ARPA grant and your RMC grants. So once those are earned, those liabilities go away. It's just saying that it's just really unspent government grant money. But again, it comes into a fund balance, saying that there's more assets and liabilities of about $1.7 million. Page 15 really shows the difference between your government-wide statements and your fund level statements. So it shows that the capital assets and your really long-term debts are really the drivers of the difference between those two amounts. Page 16, this is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and change for the fund balance. And this really breaks it more out, your revenues and expenses, by the types that they are, the tax revenues, the expenditures for governments, general government, public safety, things like that. But again, it comes down to your change in net position. So again, it was a positive change of about $229,000 for the year. And then again, page 17, again, is kind of like a reconciliation between the statement of activities and that statement of revenues and expenses and changes in net position. And really kind of shows that it's the capital assets you would have purchased during the year, along with the depreciation that would have occurred during the year. And then either the payments that were made on long-term debt, whether it was bonds and leases, and then also just the proceeds that you would have gotten from those. But again, it's kind of a reconciliation schedule between the two statements. Page 18 and 19, these are your kind of like fund level statements for the water and sewer, your proprietary funds, your business type funds. Again, it would pretty much will mimic exactly what your what was presented on the government-wide statements, because the proprietary statements will, as you'll see, will include your long-term debts and your capital assets. So again, it was total change in net position when it came to your proprietary type funds was actually a loss of $677,000, and a lot of that had to do with the depreciation just of the water and sewer systems. Moving on from that, you then pretty much get into your notes to your financial statements. This is pages 21 through 37. And these really just kind of get into detail about a lot more of the numbers. It gives your significant accounting policies or what note 1 is. Note 2 will kind of get into your deposits and your investments that you would have for the town. Note 3 as well. Note 4 gives you more details about your capital assets, breaking it out by the different types of capital assets they are, and between the governmental and business type activities. Note 5 and 6 kind of go into your long-term debts, whether it's the bonds that you would have for the mortgage of the town hall, or like I said, the water and sewer system, and all the loans that might have been taken out with that, along with like vehicles as well. It breaks it out over the long-term portions, showing you how much you are going to owe per year on a lot of those long-term obligations. Then notes 8, 9, 10 through 16 are really just kind of summaries of, like I said, a lot of the different numbers throughout the financial statements. But I do want to point out that note 15, basically it kind of says that there you had expenditures more than what was budgeted for appropriations, and that kind of will go on with page 39, your budget to actual statement. And it'll show that you ended up having 650-some thousand more in expenditures than what was budgeted. But you will then also see on this that you actually had $1.2 million in revenues that really weren't budgeted for. So all those excess expenditures were covered by excess revenue. And then finishing out pages 40 through 41, this is our report on controls. We don't audit to provide an opinion over controls, but we do assess controls, test controls while we're doing our audit. And during our tested controls, we really did not have any findings whatsoever. So overall, it was a clean opinion across the financial statements in total. And again, I just want to thank Judy, Calvin, and the council for having us for doing the audit this year, and thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for coming down. Does anyone have any questions?
One thing that we would like to kind of keep in your mind is 2024 calendar year is usually a big year for the ARPA money. I know in these financial statements, you had about $2.3 million of unspent ARPA money. Calvin and I talked about it, and he says there's plans for it all, so that's great, but I just want to make sure that by the end of the year, if you're not taking it under provision of government services, that it's all contracted, signed, sealed, ready to happen. So, and you will have a report, an ARPA report that is due to the federal government in the month of April. So if you guys need assistance with that, just reach out to us and we can help you.
You fine, Judy? Well, thank you very much.
Commissioner
Thank
Pierce.
you.
I think it's important to bring some things full circle too. I also want to thank Kim and Stephen for your hard work, and I especially want to thank Judy and her team. I just want to remind everybody we've come a long way in this community over the years, and I also want to make sure that you guys, the elected body, are also recognized too, because we've talked ad nauseum about the uphill battle the town has had in reference to new investments. We've talked about, the significant drop-off in real estate tax value just between 2010 and 2014, when the town was at its apex of real estate value, and that's how we get our revenues. Last year was the first year that we exceeded the real estate revenue that we actually received in 2010. So that's a long time to be trying to dig out of a hole, but yet the town, as we've talked about it, we'll talk about it again during the budget, we have one of the lowest tax rates in the county for towns. We are the only community that has lowered its tax rate twice in the last couple of years. We have a heavy lift with the sewer and water that we're still trying to dig out from underneath of, and we haven't quite realized the return on the investment in terms of new development, but we are getting there. And during that time, everybody as a community, you always talk about it takes a village, residents, elected officials, business owners, staff. We've managed to keep this town going forward and to actually grow despite having essentially what was a $200,000 difference between real estate tax in 2010 collected and real estate tax that was collected in 2016. So that needs to be highlighted. We're not completely there yet, but we are headed in the right direction. So again, thanks to everybody.
Again, thanks for making the
Thank
drive.
you.
Yep, thank you all. If you ever have questions, you can reach out to us. Judy can get you our
I'll
contact
send them
info.
the letter.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
the thing of it is, it's pretty straightforward. You've laid everything out for us. You know, even us non-accounting people can look at it and figure it out.
Very good.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Yep, thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Thanks.
Be safe driving home.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Okay. On to Resolution 2024-3, the vehicle financing. Calvin,
So what you have before you is a resolution to continue with our vehicle replacement programs. The chief and I were talking about this today. COVID really put a wrinkle in our replacement plans that we did. The chief and I basically came to the town around the same time back in '07, and we always strived to get the vehicles on a replacement schedule. The other thing we did is we stopped buying vehicles out of pocket and really tapping into our cash flow. And when we just talked about the town's success and keeping services going was because we found other ways to be able to afford those services. And one of those was through basically tax-exempt leasing of the vehicles. And so in continuing with that, we have some vehicles that are scheduled to be replaced. And that's, if you're good with that, I'll read the resolution into the minutes and you can decide what you want to do.
please.
Okay. So I'll skip through some of the boilerplate. It's Resolution 2024-03, Police Department and Town Vehicle Leasing. Whereas, I'm going to the fourth whereas, the mayor and commissioners have determined that a true and very real need exists for the acquisition of new police vehicles consisting of 2 Ford Interceptors and ancillary lights and communication equipment, and a Chevy Tahoe with ancillary lights and communication equipment for the town code department, emergency management, and general administration at a total cost of all the vehicles not to exceed $205,000. Whereas the purchase of these vehicles is consistent with the town's vehicle replacement schedule created several years ago, and also address supply chain issues with getting these vehicles in a timely manner. And whereas the mayor and commissioners, after thorough research and investigation, has determined that leasing these vehicles and equipment with the option to own at some point is consistent with the town's past practices and provides the best financial benefit for the town. And whereas to secure this leasing, the leasing company has requested that a formal resolution be adopted detailing this initiative. Therefore, let it be resolved that the mayor and commissioners grant full authority to the town administrator, Calvin A. Bonneberger Jr., to negotiate, enter into, and execute a contract with the leasing company on behalf of the town, ensuring that all terms and conditions of the contract are consistent with the parameters set forth in this resolution and to the best interest of the town. This authorization includes the power to make appropriate adjustments to the contract, sign related documents, and undertake all necessary actions to finalize the transaction as contemplated by the contract. And be it further resolved that the mayor and commissioners of the town of Rising Sun pass, approved, and adopted this resolution on the 12th day of March 2024. I just want to double back on one of the comments that I made, and then it came out in this. Because of supply chain issues, we committed to ordering the interceptor vehicles. We actually did this a long time ago because there was a concern that if we waited too long, case in point, we were talking about these vehicles back in 2022, and they just recently became available. So we're trying to stay ahead of the curve on the wear and tear, especially on our police vehicles, and get them, make sure our people are in the best equipment possible for them to do their jobs. So,
Is this the same leasing company we've used before?
yes,
So it's, then it is a lease to own, so. it's-
Yes, it is a
whatever
lease.
the term is, at the end of it, we own the
Yes.
vehicle.
and we, right now,
Well,
we're looking at
non-appropriate.
5-year leasing on
Yeah.
all the vehicles.
This is
Yeah.
just an upgrade for these three vehicles. We've done this, the same policy for as long as I can remember.
Yeah,
just
we
replacement.
rotate them
Yes,
out.
Yeah, it's not an upgrade. it's just
Yeah,
a
this is just another formality for
Yeah,
for
the
us to
current
get
fleet,
these.
yeah, the current fleets, I mean, God, we have, most of our cars are over almost 6 years old now.
Yeah, we have a couple,
Teens, 2018s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, we're starting to get a really aging fleet because of supply chain. I mean, that 3 years just kind of like slipped by, but the cars continue to age.
Yes.
So,
the other thing that I want to stress to
Yeah.
you, and especially hit us hard on the police end, is we've seen, and the chief can add to this if I'm missing something, but there's been a big cost difference, increasing cost,
Yeah.
and getting the vehicles equipped compared to what we used to do in the past. So that's one of the reasons why there's more of an increase in what we expected.
20% increase in some of the parts.
Yeah,
yeah, and then the vehicles themselves are getting a lot more expensive.
yeah.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Yes.
So moved, seconded.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 The motion passes. The resolution is in effect. Okay, moving on to resolution 2024-04, staff technical assistance and advisory review services. Galvin, you want to bring us up to date on what this is?
Yes, so we've talked about this many times, and we've always used the analogy of we don't want the little old lady on a fixed income having to have her real estate taxes used for expenses that really have no bearing. And I use the analogy of the little old lady, but it can be anyone for that matter. And with the investments that are starting to come to the town, and because of our level of involvement in the process, we get a lot of inquiries. In other words, developers, builders, lending institutions kicking the tires on their plans on what they want to do. And I'll give you two examples where I think it's unfair to our taxpayers. And this resolution is designed to not create a situation where taxpayers' money is being paid for technical review time of either myself, Judy, our code officer, the engineer, or the town attorney. That if somebody wants technical assistance or advisory on their projects, then they're gonna pay for that directly. And I'll give you two examples of that. We get some large properties that either want to refinance their loans or they want to sell. And because these are potentially $1 million or more transactions, the lending institutions want to make sure that there's due diligence before they either approve the refinance or provide the funding. And so everybody goes out and they hire a third-party entity that gets paid a pretty premium to basically call us and have us do all the technical research, give it to them, and then they go to the bank or their client and say, look what I provided for you, now pay me my thousands of dollars for getting that information. But they get the information through our hard work and our reviewing of stuff. And I'm talking about things, and let me make this clear. Under the Freedom of Information request, we are only required to provide documents that have already been created. We're not required to create a new document. We're only required to provide what's already there. And it's not good enough that if somebody says we want to know all the code violations on a particular property, yeah, we could go back and give them all those violation notices. But it's like any other organization that is it can sometimes just be a call taker taking that information and they have no idea what to do with it. And so they start asking us, well, what does that mean? And what can my client do with their property? And when it's zoned this, could they be able to do the following things? And so, again, that might be a couple $1,000s that third party is charging the landowner, the bank, or whatever. But that third party is getting paid for the work that we're actually doing. So this fee schedule aims to start collecting money up front for the services that we provide. So again, hypothetically, it doesn't come out of the pocket of the little old lady on a fixed income or anybody else in our community. The other area is when developers come in and they start to contemplate what they want to do with their land, especially projects that, as we know, got caught up in the sewer and water moratorium and they got suspended. Well, they're jumping into the middle of that and they want to figure out where everything is at, what they can do, what they can't do. And that requires a tremendous amount of time on our part to navigate them through that. And in some cases, these projects may never come to fruition. That happens. And we could be paying our engineer a couple $1,000s to have reviewed something, our town attorney to review something, or me or Judy to spend, 20, 30 hours doing research, and it never goes anywhere. And even if it does go somewhere, there isn't really a mechanism to recover that, even when they get in the land development review process. The fees that we charge are based upon the application when it's submitted. And one of the things we have seen with the Knutson property and some of the other development properties is we've been asked to review a lot of stuff before it even gets to the land development stage. And again, that's just not fair. And I'll say this, the whole goal of what we're trying to do is to maintain our tax rate the way it is, and to maintain our sewer and water rates, if not lower our sewer and water rates. And so just like we did back in 2007, when we totally reconstructed our budget process, and we basically did what they call zero budgeting and rebuild it, we're looking to do the same thing on the services that are being asked of us, to zero it out. And instead of having real estate tax pay for those services, have the individuals or the entities that are the only ones benefiting from those services to start paying for that. So that's what this fee schedule aims to do. So if you're good with that, I can read it into the minutes.
You're going to just review the actual resolution. We're not gonna get into the nuts and bolts of all this in the fee schedule, correct?
No, other than I'm just going to explain that we broke it down into 3 categories. And we provided a lot of information for someone looking at it to see what they're going to get for that.
Okay,
So Resolution 2024-04, I'll go to the third whereas. Where the town of Rising Sun is regularly solicited for technical assistance by potential developers, contractors, and third-party agencies acting on behalf of landowners. These requests encompass due diligence for potential building or development projects, including the assessment of property viability, compliance with code requirements, and evaluation of various project aspects. Such assistance involves collaboration with engineers, brokers, designers, and entails thorough documentation research to identify any code violations, historical property modifications, zoning issues, and other critical factors that could impact lending decisions for property purchases or refinancing. And whereas the provisions of this extensive guidance and evaluation by the town staff, engineering firm, and town attorney demands considerable time and effort and incurs costs borne by the taxpayers that the third parties hired by the landowner or prospective client get paid for securing this technical information, but not the town. Despite the significant resources deployed, these inquiries frequently do not progress to formal project proposal or result in tangible action by the landowners, thereby benefiting prospective developers, financial institutions, builders, and third-party services, and at the expense of the town taxpayers. And whereas the cumulative effect of these activities places a substantial burden on town resources and taxpayer funds, with the benefits accruing primarily to private interests without corresponding action or commitment from the requesting parties. And whereas the town is permitted to collect fees for these services and to recover the expenses put forth by the town in addressing these requests. And whereas Chapter 9, titled Finance, Taxation, Business, and Trade of the town's Code of Ordinances contains Article 6, titled Establishment of a Town Fee Schedule, which provides for the creation of a town fee schedule established by resolution and amended from time to time by the mayor and commissioners. And whereas the fee schedule is being updated to include the collection of reasonable fees for these types of services requested from the town. And whereas these fees will be detailed in the fee schedule by taking the current language in Section 5 of the current fee schedule titled Annexation, Stormwater Management, and Land Development and Zoning Fees, and moving it to Section 6, and renumbering all the remaining sections accordingly. Whereas a new Section 5 will be inserted, entitled to read as Staff Technical Assistance and Advisory Review Services, and will contain all the fees associated with these services. Therefore, be it enacted and resolved that the proposed new fees shall be as indicated in the attached document, with changes and insertions of new text indicated in red, with underlined and deleted text indicated as strike-through. Therefore, be it further resolved that the mayor and commissioners of the town of Rising Sun pass, approved, and adopted this resolution on this 12th day of March 2024, and will be made part of the overall town fee schedule. And so, real quick, the first 4 sections of the fee schedule, as you can see on the screen, are listed in black. And for your purposes, I only gave you the red changes. But for the residents, we're showing that we're not making any changes in the first 4 sections. We're just moving what was in Section 5 previously, and I'll jump to that, and you'll see that. What was in Section 5 was annexation, stormwater management, and land development. It was Section 5. You see the strike through, it's now Section 6. So, and then all the remaining sections are renumbered. What this is going to do is, it is basically taking the technical advisory that we're doing and breaking it down into Section A, general inquiries related to sales, refinancing, and deed transfers. And this explains what the intent is and the type of information that's involved in providing that information. And then we're gonna take the building construction and renovation phase, and we're gonna break that down into exploratory construction consulting services, technical construction consultation, and then early construction engagement services. The important thing here is that we're not looking to nickel and dime everybody who comes in and says, hey, I'm thinking of putting a deck on the back of my house, what do I need to do? The first 2 hours is gonna be covered. That kind of nickel and dime stuff, that's not what we're worried about. What we're worried about is when some of these projects start talking about, well, am I gonna need a fire sprinkler system in my building, and if I do a hood system, what does that mean? And they start to ask us what's involved in those various levels. So depending upon how much detail they want to get from us will determine after the exploratory construction phase, whether they're in the technical construction consultation, or if they're really going into, hey, before I submit my application or pay a lot of money to my sprinkler contractor, is this really a good idea of what I need to do when I put fire sprinklers in a building? And then the third phase of this technical review is titled Land Development to include stormwater management and FEMA assistance. As we talked about at the last meeting, FEMA can be really complicated, and they may hire a third party to try to guide them through the system, but I can't tell you the number of times that I get contacted from engineering firms who just have 1,000,001 questions. And that's fine if we're in the first 2 hours. But then when they start submitting plans to us and they go back and forth and I've got to get the town attorney involved in the engineer, now we might be looking at $5,000 or $6,000 of expenses that up to this point would go unreimbursed to the town. So this is just sort of a get it in our fee schedule so we can try to recover some of these expenses. So that concludes. Now, the one thing I will also add in here, in one of the remaining sections, and we've been talking about this in the past, is we often get requests for town services at non-town sanctioned events. And what I mean by that is a sanctioned event is if the fire company's doing their 100th anniversary parade, we're not going to charge for police or public works being out there. If the chamber is going to do Sunfest, we don't charge them for that. If Little League does their parade or the middle school does their Tiger Trot, we don't charge for that. But we're not really set up for if somebody's doing a big construction project, and this happened when Martin's was being built, where they had to eliminate the traffic light that used to be down by the McDonald's and move it up to the new Martin's. Well, that created a traffic issue. So they needed to engage with our police department to have people out there providing traffic control. So it could be something like that. It could be someone wanting to use town square for maybe a color fun run, or other type of fundraising event for a third party that's not our Legion, not our Lions Club, not our fire company, not our Little League. Again, it costs a lot of money for us to have public works out there on a Saturday. We're talking thousands of dollars between overtime expenses. And so this is just establishing here that we have the right to charge for those services at an overtime rate when it requires overtime. So that's another thing that's in this fee schedule for consideration.
Thank you, Calvin. Can I have a motion on resolution 2024-04?
Motion to approve resolution 2024-04.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Let's have a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. The resolution's in effect. Okay, we have no unfinished business. We have no new business. Certainly no citizens' input. Staff reports. Town Administrator.
The biggest thing, and I've been sending you guys some emails on this, but we've made a heavy push for grant applications this year. The one downside of grant applications is the amount of money you pay to get those applications up and running. And for example, we have about a total of, I'm going to say about actually about $30 million of grant applications that we have paid our engineering firm probably in excess of $30,000 in engineering, design, and stuff that has to be submitted. There's no guarantee that you get those grants, which means there's, you paid for the grant applications. I think the best way to describe it is if you're someone that really wants to win the lottery, you can't win the lottery if you don't buy the ticket. So look at it that way. You got to spend the money. And it becomes a delicate balance, and we've talked about that as we're trying to dig out of all those, basically a decade of no investments in the town. Our infrastructure is getting older. And you've heard me talk about the MS4 requirements. We have resubmitted again. That grant application, and this is pretty significant, everyone in the state of Maryland and in all the states submits this particular type of grant application to their respective state, and the state chooses which grant applications they feel are what they want to get behind and support. The state of Maryland, through the Office of Emergency Management, has supported and recommended 2 of our grant applications for approval. We hope to hear something around August for that. One of those is to try to get grant money for that unfunded mandate of the MS4, which again, it's going to jump up on us. We've got to spend about $1.7 million pre-inflation calculations going back to 2018. My point is, it's probably $2 million plus to come into compliance with reducing the nutrient impact in the Chesapeake Bay. It's your classic example of an unfunded mandate, but we're required to do it. Hopefully, if we get this grant to decommission the lagoon, we can save the money that we will have to spend to decommission the lagoon the way MDE wants us to, while also turning the lagoon into a wetlands buffer, which will allow us to get basically 99% of that 20% requirement handled just through that grant application. So there's a couple other grants that we've submitted for. There's a couple grants that we've been awarded also. So we'll keep you up to date on the progress on all of those applications.
Okay, thank you, Town Administrator. Chief?
I only have 2 things for tonight. We talked about the supply chain, how slow it was earlier. We submitted for a grant over a year ago for some speed monitoring trailers. We finally have hands-on. They are in our possession, and it's been over a year. Thank goodness we do have them now. Second, the middle school's Tiger Trot is this weekend. It begins at 9 a.m. on Saturday, the 16th. Expect detours and delays in the area. This is a 5K. In the past, we've been done within 45 minutes to 50 minutes with the run and walk, and we hope it will continue to go that quickly here. It happens rain or shine, so if you're out and about during that time of day on Saturday, be prepared that you're going to face some traffic detours. And that's my report.
Thank you. I don't believe the town attorney is with us tonight.
That is correct, he's not. He was
Okay.
unable to join.
Assistant Town Administrator,
I do have a few things, Augie, thank you. This Friday at 2 p.m., we will be opening bids for window painting at the Cultural Center. So if you're a contractor or someone listening that has a contractor that would like to be interested, please call Town Hall and we'll be more than happy to supply the RFP for you. And we look forward to the bids we're going to be getting. Also, April 13th, got a couple of mark your calendars. April 13th is Spring Clean Out Saturday. So we will have a dumpster and Public Works, the Public Works area will be open from 8 to 12 for spring clean out of bulk items. We're also looking, watch your utility bill. We will be starting spring hydrant flushing, but we will give you plenty of a heads up when that's going to be happening and also post on our website. And mark the calendar for May 5th, fishing derby is going to, the fishing rodeo is going to be happening, and DNR is stocking the pond. And that's it for me.
okay, the mayor's not here, so we have no mayor's report. Commissioners' comments. Commissioner Kleiner,
I don't have a report this week.
Commissioner Pearson. I would like to thank Public Works for filling in the potholes on Pearl Street. It got to be real bad there for a few days. Outside of that, thank you for everything they've done over the last few weeks. It's been tough. Commissioner Warnick.
I have no report.
Okay. Planning and Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission schedule. Town Administrator, you want to go over that, please?
Yeah, we don't have any cases pending right now, so our planning commission, unless we can't get attendance on it, we meet the first and third Monday of every month, so our next meeting is March 18th, followed by the first Monday in April, being April 1st, and our Board of Zoning Appeals meets as needed.
Okay, one thing I would like to remind the public on this is there may be ongoing cases, such as with the two developments. These are not on the agenda, so you can't come and speak on them. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's typically not a good idea to talk about a case without the applicant being there to defend themselves. But that doesn't mean if anybody has any questions, they can reach out, and we'll answer their questions if they want to email us any questions. And just so you know, we had at least one out-of-town resident come in and review the plans. We set them up in an office downstairs, and they spent a couple hours reviewing the plans. So the plans that have been formally submitted can be viewed here in the town office.
Upcoming holidays where the town hall is closed. Good Friday, March 29th. Memorial Day, Monday the 27th. Trash and recycling and yard waste schedule. Once again, yard waste is every Monday or the following Tuesday, provided it's a Monday holiday. Trash is picked up on Thursday unless we have weather-related issues. Recycling is picked up on Tuesdays, again, unless we have weather-related issues. Holidays recognized by the trash recycling hauler: Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. If there's no other things to be brought before the board, can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Seconded?
It's passed. All in favor, say aye.
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 Have a good evening, everyone.